We're going to be looking at your bass drum. This is an 18 by about 4-inch bass drum, the 4 inches being the depth and the 18 being the diameter. It's got the wood counter hoops and a resonant head and a batter head. Now, of course, tuning is a big part of this. You're kind of set with your tone as far as the depth and the diameter, but what we do out of our shop is that we have these all really well greased up and making it feel that you can get a really finite touch. And how we have it out of the shop is usually about a quarter turn or a little bit less off of tension, because we want to get that lowest fundamental note as we can. So this resonant head is going to be great for getting that just kind of after effect of the bass head. It's not as much of a tack. If I had one thing to microphone on this whole drum, it would probably be this bass drum. And having this porthole right here allows me to kind of capture a little bit of the attack of the batter head, or maybe a little bit of warmth of the resonant head. Sort of just depends on the style that you're going for and the sound guy and the microphone and the PA and all that other stuff. But acoustically speaking, it's got a little felt dampening element right in here that kind of just kills some of that tone, the overtones, some of the louder ringing tones, and just kind of settles in on the thump. A lot of drummers are going to also probably do is stuff their bass drum with a different kind of material to kind of dampen some of that. In this case, I have a couple rags, maybe a t-shirt inside one of our little soft cases. I'm just going to go ahead and put it at the bottom. We're going to hear it first. And not really doing much here. I'm just going to hear a different sound. Not much resonance, but you do hear some of that low end. So experiment with putting a little bit of touch inside of your drum to help keep the vibrations muted a little bit to emphasize some of the lower note. And again, if I was to really look at this drum, I might do that same to the front head every once in a while. Make sure it's just a little bit under tension, but you know, we'll have it coming to you out of the mail in pretty good detail of a good low sounding bass drum. So let's take a look a little bit at the pedal now. By the way, you can play this bass drum on its own. Of course, this is your batter side. You just put your bass drum pedal and you have your spurs off to the side. So in case you want to play this bass drum on its own, you certainly can. Again, looking at the beater, we've been talking about the 3 different sounds that it can do. And that's your smacky, hard, punchy sound of wood, your kind of normal, rounded, felt sound of a punchiness, and then this is your soft and warm, thumpy sound, and that's a sheepskin with a cork backing. We make this trio bass beater right here in shop, and it's of course attached via some hardware here to the mechanism that keeps it sprung. This is the only sprung item in our bass drum, or in our drum altogether. Everything else has been used with magnets for the tension. But this is a really classic setup of a bass drum. At the bottom of this anchor is, of course, the tension of that spring that can be changed. In this case, you just loosen up the back end, and then you tighten up. Sorry, this would be to tighten up once you have your jam nut off. And it's going to pull that spring a little bit tighter so that it keeps it to the center of where it's set a little bit tighter. Now, you can change where that tension is set, or where this spring is at rest, by coming underneath here, loosening that up. Let's say I have it right here. Well, if this is my bass drum head, it's going to just be a little tiny hit. And if I want to bring this way back for a really big wind up, this pedal's jumped a little bit higher, and you got to work a lot harder to work it through the full swing in order to hit the head. We like to keep it right around above that logo that we sign with our name of the maker and the date that it was made, and a serial number, of course. This one's number 837. So you have this spring tension, and you also now have just a little bit of understanding of where these cams are working. These cams and different poles are in relationships to each other to allow for a nice, smooth throw. There are instances where if you feel like you want to play around a little bit, you can change the distance of these two anchoring points, and it just makes for a different kind of feel of a pedal. I'm not going to be telling you what is the best way to do it, because everyone kind of gets used to the feel of a pedal over time, and we think this is the best setup for feeling comfortable right out of the gate. Now again, once you're making contact with your head, you do have an adjustable feature on this bass pedal to have that on the top of the pedal to change where that piston is and how high the pedal is when it's fully depressed. So you could experiment with that a little bit, but again, we have it at a factory setting where you have a pretty good distance or height of your pedal right when it lands onto that head. And those are pretty much the dynamics of your bass pedal. The tension, where it's set as a resting spot, the height of your pedal as done with your 4mm Allen wrench on top, and maybe a couple places where you just want to make sure everything looks like it's functioning well, and you check it once in a while because this stuff gets hit pretty heavily. So let's go ahead and put our bass drum on, and we'll take a quick look at some of the pedal features or playing techniques of this pedal. Right out of the gate, of course, it's one of the simpler pedals. You're not going to couple it with anything else. You push down, and what you get is what you get. You get a nice big bass drum boom. So playing that pedal for me is done in a few different ways. One of those is to kind of use this calf muscle to always be balancing off of the heel. I can drop my heel by relaxing this muscle, or I can stay steady on it. And I stay steady on it because some players might find if they take their foot off, they kind of synchronize with the swing of the bass drum, and it really becomes an anemic hit. I'm not exerting much of a whipping motion on it if I hit it right at the time that it's going down. So I've heard of some people say that this doesn't sound very good, and it doesn't. But if I put my foot and I find that energy by whipping it down with my foot, I can get a big punch without moving my heel or my foot up that much. Now, the further down you get your pedal, it's less leverage. It's just a different kind of feel. So maybe you find the ways on the pedal that give you the most power. To most people, it's somewhere around this mark a little bit down here. To do it at the very top, of course, you're going to get different stuff. And now I'm really pushing with the front of my toe further down. And how you kind of relate to that pedal is through the different muscles of your foot. Now, again, when I think about playing double notes, I tend to think about walking up a little bit of the pedal. That's a technique you can learn from people online, but it's finding that beat through the movement of your foot up on down the pedal, or different leverage points. And again, you might find your own way to play this pedal or already know how to do it, but you can find that power with a shorter swing, or as you were just shown earlier, go back and adjust a few things, and maybe you'll find a different set of preferences that make it feel a little bit more comfortable for you to play that bass drum.